Welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast, where international cricketer Kieran Powell and marketing genius Jordan and Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 35 of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm your host Jordan Shannon. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Kieran Powell. And how are you, Kai?
I'm good, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Just before we start today, I just want to thank everybody for, watching and listening over the past, 4 or 5 episodes. It's been fantastic to see some of the numbers come through and some of the comments on YouTube and things. So I really do appreciate people taking the time to listen. And, also I want to thank our guests, for joining us. It's been really, really good over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. But obviously the T20 World Cup is fully underway. We've had some great games of cricket so far. And with some of the semi-final places, fixed and some are still up for grabs. What's your take so far?
No, I think to be fair, the tournament on a whole has been actually very exciting. I think the pitches have had a lot to do with that because it's brought in the initial round some of the lesser teams back into the competition and made it sort of even playing fields where you're not seeing, like as we saw in the IPL, for example, teams that would have blown away these lesser teams and made probably 260, 280. Like you had a lot of gripping competitions. And you look at South Africa, for example, that are unbeaten throughout the tournament, but they've not had any huge wins. It's been lots of close games and they've come down to the last ball on several occasions. So it's been a pretty exciting tournament. I think now the final 8s have thrown up even more compelling competition thus far throughout the games that have been played so far. So it's been really good to see and just understanding, well, I guess teams now understanding, you hear everyone talking about the win, and what the win factor really is in the Caribbean, because, I mean, obviously you've not heard much of that from the West Indies team because it's a known thing. Like guys have been there their entire lives. It's every single ground has the same win factor coming east to west, and everyone knows that. So everyone knows to hit west once you're batting in the Caribbean, and so it's just other teams starting to figure out how to use those conditions to their favor, and I guess understanding that each pitch in each country is completely different as well, and what you need to do to be successful.
He's quite interested about the win factor. Then they were saying just after Quinton de Kock with his score against England, and he was saying about his experience in the CPL and how it played a massive factor. And if you look back at some of them, there has definitely been some trends of people who played a lot of cricket in the Caribbean in the performances as well.
And it's not even just the win factor. That's, I guess, the experienced players and people that have played in, but it's just understanding the pitches, because the pitches are a bit tricky to bat in the Caribbean. And you see, for example, the guys that have played will get their teams off to quick starts or whatever the case is, and then the guys that haven't been to the Caribbean much and played in CPL, etc., get sort of stuck on these pitches because it's not an easy place to bat in the Caribbean. I think for the West Indies team, that's something that they have to use to their advantage. And I think last night in particular, I mean, obviously we know it was against the USA, but they have been playing good cricket. But it was good to see that the guys went out with really positive attacking intent and got that game done in as quickly as possible a manner to boost their net run rate, because as I said to you via chat from the start of the week, I said this group is going to come down to net run rate.
Net run rate, you called it straight away.
It's playing out straight in front of us. So West Indies should be able to use those conditions to their favour.
No, and I think that it's a very a great game yesterday for West Indies, but for the agency as well, really, in the way that Roston with the ball And, he's really, in my opinion, I think he's had a great tournament so far. He's his second man of the match, but also he's just given them that sort of blanket, really, of the comfort blanket of having the both things, both forms he can do. And then Shea at the top of the order was just superb. Any doubts in anyone's mind about strike rate with him, he put that to bed straight away.
Yeah, no, it's been great for the agency. I think that Roston, as you said, that blanket, I think that he always does what's needed when needed most.
Yeah.
It's never like sort of in your face until you dive deeper into the stats and you look at, oh God, like this.
Yeah.
He's got 2 MVPs in 5 matches, so 40% of the games he's MVP. It's like, simple equations. And obviously Shea's just played his second match of the tournament, and that 80-something for me sort of reflects and represents why Shea should be opening the batting in one-day cricket as well. I mean, I've said this to you on numerous occasions. I think that he's clogging up the middle order of what could be like the most explosive middle order team in 50 over cricket. I think that if he moves back up to opening the batting, he sort of has the ability to bat right through the innings and let everyone else play around him, because like you get to take advantage of the power play in 50 over cricket. So he'll get off to good starts, and then he can just knock it around for the next 40 overs, which is exactly what West Indies need. One guy at one end holding things up while the other guys can be explosive and take bowlers down. And he's got 15, I think he's got 17 ODI centuries now. If that's I think so. 16 or 17, something like that. But whatever the case is, he's got something like 13 as an opener. So he's the West Indies like third most successful opener ever. Yeah. And so why would you not want to go back up there? And once you have the skill like what he's displayed last night, I think that will serve him in good stead, not only in 50 over cricket, but give him more opportunities in T20 cricket as well. So it's really good to see. And I think that he just continues to strengthen more points.
No, definitely. And I think what was a big thing as well for West Indies was that leading into the game, it was obviously the case of the changeover with Brandon King coming out, and reading between the lines, people was obviously talking about Kyle Myers potentially, that he was the replacement. But I think what happened was just Shea just went in there, did his own thing, and it's just really sort of. I'm not saying, from my own experience, not playing any tournament cricket, but when an injury takes place, it could probably rock the boat a little bit. The uncertainty of whether they was going to, who they would bring in. Does that change the batting order? Does someone, and what Shea did last night was basically just steady the ship. He came in, did more than what he needed to do, which was superb, but all that momentum and everything that has been picked up so far has just continued, and in a great position for West Indies to qualify for the semi-final.
Yeah, 100%. I think that what's made that innings even so much more interesting is that whilst Johnson Charles has gotten a few starts, he's gotten stuck a bit throughout the tournament in terms of his strike rate and stuff. I think he's probably got, if I'm not mistaken, 240s, a 30-yard, almost 340s, and like 15 last night. So he's got, let's say, 140 runs in the tournament, which isn't a bad return thus far, but the strike rate isn't what they would have expected. And so this is going to be an interesting toss-up for the next match in whether they choose to add Kyle Mayers to partner alongside Shea Hope and really try and maximize that power play, because we know the type of dynamic, destructive player that Kyle Mayers is, and then obviously adding that left-right combination at the top, allowing you to attack the side with the wind
and all that. Yeah, exactly what you just mentioned.
All those factors, and understanding that it's a must-win game, and then Kyle Mayers being another additional bowling option as well, if necessary, in a must-win game. It throws up a lot of potentials there for the West Indies. So I think these are things to take into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. It would be interesting to see how what route they go down. I think one thing that has been working for them well has been the 3 spinners, which you spoke about. Well, which you definitely spoke about at the start of the tournament. I think Gudakesh Moti, Akil Hussain, and then obviously Roston, which we touched on before. I think all 3 of them have bowled superbly throughout the tournament, giving them different variations and stuff throughout that 20 overs, and it's made it tough.
100%. I think to add to that, Alzari has been bowling very well as well, picking up wickets and bowling quickly. So for instance, as a captain, you've got pretty much 16 of your 20 overs nailed down. And it's just a matter of who you want to mix and match with that final four. How much of Russell you're going to use. Obviously, they've added Obed McCoy, which is that left arm variety. So you've got 6 bowling options there. You don't necessarily have to bowl out any one bowler if they're not having a great day. So you've got lots of coverage there. So, I mean, the West Indies are in a good place. Having said that, their next matchup is South Africa, and they're also in a good place. I mean, they haven't lost a game for the tournament, as I've mentioned earlier. No. And their bowlers came up trumps in what was, I thought, a very good match. And I thought that England, pulled the trigger probably an over and a half, a bit too late in that run chase. So. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think, if you're going to lose that match, you're going to have to get bowled out from that position, because I think Liam Livingston and Harry Brook, even though England were behind the 8 ball, they sort of set the foundation where they could have launched, let's say, at least an over earlier, giving them a bit more time to close out the game, and forcing South Africa as well to bring back one of their main bowlers a bit earlier. So maybe Nokia would not have been the one that bowled that last over as well. So, just different things like that to take into consideration. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, obviously, me and you spoke a few weeks ago about the role of Sam Curran, and I think England should have gone a bit earlier, because at one point we were discussing where Sam Curran could bat, whether he could bat 5 or 6 anyway. So to have him there, I do think we probably could have gone a bit over earlier, really. And like you said, it might have forced, South Africa's hand a little bit to go with Nokia, because I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this tournament. Arguably probably the best bowler of the tournament so far, potentially, especially from a quick perspective. I think I would have liked to have seen England go a bit earlier, but,
I think when you look at it as well, that's sort of the issue West Indies were having as well, because they were playing Romario Shepherd, so you had this depth of batting, but you weren't utilising it because you weren't going hard from the start. So then it becomes like a moot point, playing all these batting options, but then not sort of utilising it, and then you be left short in the end and think, we could have. So I guess in that sense, it would make more sense to play another specialist batter or another specialist bowler, if that's the case, as opposed to someone that's not going to necessarily bowl a full quarter of overs and not necessarily going to bat a full allotment of balls either. You're better off going with a specialist in that case, instead of having too many options.
Yeah. Part of, obviously, leading up to this World Cup, we spoke about the importance from a cricket perspective of it catching fire in America. And, we raised a few concerns in terms of some of the pitches in America and the lack of potential games that have been played on them. How do you think the sport has been taken over there? And I know we could have done more, undoubtedly, but how do you think they've taken to some of the actual games that have been played over there?
I think what's happened is people that know and love cricket in America know and love cricket. Those are the ones that sort of came out, supported the game. You look at the crowds; it was heavily Indian or Indian descent, like Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis. You'd find the odd splattering of English fans that came over, or Australian fans, whatever the case. But it's not sort of tapped into the consciousness of, I guess, the everyday American, or broken into the conversation, I'd say, into the main sporting realm there. I think that we left a lot of stones unturned, unfortunately. And as I was saying, like, in terms of the marketing and the build-up of this, the opportunity this presented, like, they had to do some big marketing where they got some huge American stars to be, I guess, the brand ambassadors for that leg of the tournament. And get them to really promote it heavily throughout the talk shows, radio shows, etc., their social media platforms, and get people interested. You don't have to get millions and millions of people at once, but if you start piquing the interest of people, get them talking about it, and then they can see that the matches were, okay, we don't understand what's happening, but it looks like these guys are having fun, and there's a huge crowd, and this looks like an interesting entity, then you may get 1 or 2 kids in the backyard, trying out the game, falling in love with the game, and then coming to local cricket clubs, etc. And that's how the game grows from a grassroots level. So
Of course it is.
I think we miss that opportunity in that sense. But amongst the cricket-loving population in the US, I think it just reaffirmed their love with the game, and obviously being able to have high-quality matches, and now with Major League happening, and obviously Canada having the GT20 as well.
Yeah.
You know, cricket in the American continent is obviously taking off, and hopefully continuing to go in the right direction. And with the acceptance or approval of cricket in the Olympics in 2028, hopefully the Olympic Committee can help the ICC in sort of promoting the game a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think, in terms of obviously the games, they have been well attended from the Indians and the Pakistani market that you mentioned and stuff, which was going to be expected at the end of the day, especially with India playing Pakistan in New York. I do still look back at some of the missed opportunities, and even though, we from a business perspective and a marketing perspective, influencer marketing nowadays is it's a massive thing, and I think that they have missed opportunities for utilising people from a social media perspective and that influencer side to really sort of like open the doors into new ways. And I think also from a sponsorship perspective, they could have been free quick, some form of cricket equipment that they could have just branded up, even if it's just plastic bats and plastic balls and stuff, it's heavily branded, from a sponsorship perspective, and it's going to help get people playing. And like I say about going back to the grassroots, if they've got something they can take away, I remember with the 100, when that first came over here 2 years ago, they did a massive thing with each team was sponsored by a brand of crisps, and each team had these sets of these cricket sets, but in each of the brands of the crisp. So each crisp was like a yellow one if it was skipped, and etc. And it was slightly novelty, but at the end of the day, it was branded, and it also allowed people to take stuff home with them. It was cricket equipment stuff. It could have worked over here in a different capacity, in a much bigger, impactful way. But anyway, that's by the by. Looking back on our predictions that we both posted on the socials, I think the 4 semi-finalists are looking like we could both be in the mix, because we both did pick the same semi-finalists. So that's going to be interesting, to see how that goes. But we did also both pick Virat Kohli as a top batter, so that's looking slightly not the greatest pick so far.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely ready to change my selection on that front. And on the bowling standpoint as well, I think I selected Jofra. And Jofra has bowled beautifully, especially for someone coming back from injury. He's been a difference maker for England in pretty much every single game that they've played thus far. But you look at the lead that someone like Nokia has had, like jumping out in front of the competition. You look at a Gurukesh Modi, who quietly goes under the radar, but I think he's already up to 13 wickets. You've got people that are performing at the highest level. So this has been really good for the game. Yeah,
definitely. I think that Nokia and Alzara Joseph both taking 11 wickets. And then Archie Singh has taken 10, and then Adam Zampa, who I did pick, by the way, but he's also on 11 wickets. And then the lad from Afghanistan, Faruqi, he's leading the way with 15, so he's had a great campaign, which is good. It's great to see these, stuff like this. But from a batting perspective, neither of us will be looking. I can't see that. Well, I think Puran's leading the way anyway, and I think he was brilliant. He's had a brilliant tournament so far, and I think from American perspective as well, Goose or Hoos, he's had a good tournament as well, which is a good thing for American perspective as well, that someone from a joint host nation has had a good tournament. So that's nice and positive.
Yeah, I think when you look at the top performers, you see lots of guys not from the traditional cricketing nations. Obviously you said Faruqi from Afghanistan, for example, leading the way as a seaman. He's had a fantastic tournament, stringing the ball in and out and having a great time. You have the Americans, Hoos, and obviously Aaron Jones as well was up in the rankings for quite a bit of time in terms of leading run scorers as well. And 6 hitters. So, I've heard lots of talk from people about the participation of the associate nations, but I see it completely different. Look, I think it's been amazing. I think like when you honestly sit back and look at it, Scotland could have been in the final 8. No one would have batted an eye. You know, obviously you look at teams like Pakistan and New Zealand that aren't involved, and again the quality of cricket that's being played. There can't be any comments on anything saying anything negative about the teams that are playing. So I think that the associate nations or the smaller nations have really added something to the game. And what I'd like to see the ICC do actually is, for example, when a team is touring England, why can't they also have a few games in Scotland, a few games in the Netherlands, a few games in Ireland, you know, to continue to help those countries to grow. Likewise, if a team is touring Australia or New Zealand, why can't they stop in Papua New Guinea and have a few games, you know, and continue to help the game to grow? I think that these are simple things, simple tasks that we can do, along with those guys playing amongst themselves, to continue to get them exposure against top quality talent, top quality teams, because most likely most teams won't turn out their strongest teams against them anyway. But like any exposure that they get to high quality cricket, it's only going to help them and in turn help the game. So I think that I'd like to see things like that happening a bit more often.
No, do you know what? I think it's a great point that you've made there. I think especially from an England perspective, we should be helping the likes of Scotland and Ireland. You know, there's no reason why we can't, you know, play games in Edinburgh and play games in Dublin and Belfast and the like, because you know, it's accessible. You know, we are quite fortunate to be able to, you know, for people to get around the United Kingdom. So from my perspective, we should be doing that, and especially with the volume of white ball cricket that is played, you know. The emphasis from an ECB perspective is allocating Test cricket to certain grounds and this and that, and the way it works, fine. But there's definitely no shortage of playing, you know, white ball cricket. So that, you know, why not go there? You know, and let's help these out. And like you mentioned there, with New Zealand and Australia playing at Papua New Guinea, you know, and South Africa could do the same with playing in Namibia and the like. So it's definitely, exactly. There's definitely not a shortage to help these. You know, the other teams out. So I totally agree with that point. It's a really good point that you made there, and that'll only help strengthen the tournament going down the line. You know, that'll definitely be a benefit to the ICC on a whole anyway. So I think that I would like to see that happen. So as it stands at the minute, who do you see? Do you still standing by your 4 picks for the semi-final still?
I think my picks for Australia, India,
England and West Indies.
Yep, I'm sticking by those 4.
Yeah, likewise, I'm standing by that. I think I don't know whether you might disagree with this, because it might just be my England visors on, but I think Australia and India have just seemed to just gone under the radar so far.
I think what's happened is that they've had probably an easier run in. To getting through to the semi-final stage per se, in terms of the groups that they were in, and obviously the group that they find themselves in now as well. Qualifying for a semi-final spot. Whereas I guess West Indies, for example, came out of a group of death with Afghanistan and New Zealand, and then into another group of death now with South Africa and England. I think England are still misfiring. They're not playing necessarily their best cricket. As I said to you before the West Indies-England game, if it's one place that I did not want the West Indies to play against England, it was in St. Lucia, because that brings a lot more parity to the game, and England have the power to play on a pitch like St. Lucia, which is probably the best cricketing wicket in the Caribbean. I think that if West Indies played England in another venue, for example, it would have been a different thing, where the ball does a bit more and offers a bit more assistance for the spinners, etc. You look at somewhere like St. Vincent that's hosting Australia and Afghanistan today. That's going to be an interesting matchup, because that pitch has had the highest degree of turn for the tournament, and the scores there have been pretty much similar to the scores that we had in the New York matches, where Nepal lost to South Africa by 1 run. So that will bring Afghanistan back into that match big time against Australia. So it's going to be an interesting encounter. But what do you think about England's play overall this far?
Hit and miss. I've been impressed with it. I think Phil Salt has had a good tournament. I think, and that was a big boost at the top of the order. It's great to see Jofra Archer back. I do think he's given us that X factor that we've missed. But I just think that we started the tournament poorly, and I just don't think we've ever really got that momentum back again, really. And I think that what I'd like to see is obviously a nice dominant performance against USA to qualify, and then really sort of like, you treat it as a three. We've got to try and kick on a little bit here. But I think Josh Butler just doesn't seem to be. I don't know whether the captaincy aspect to him is sort of, weighting him down a little bit, to be honest with you, because I'm not seeing the best out of him, and I don't know whether the captaincy is not being not helping him out.
I think what's going to be interesting is that final match in that group with India, Australia. Yeah. To see who qualifies in what position, because obviously England will more than likely top this. Well, if South Africa beats the West Indies, then South Africa tops the group. Yeah. Because they'll go 3 unbeaten. But whoever tops the group and whoever plays against India will have to play. I mean, India's semi-final has been assigned before the tournament even started, which is funny in itself. But that match will be in Guyana, which we know is going to be a track that assists spinners as well. So someone's going to have a difficult time in conditions that more than likely will be more suited to India than to the opposing team as well. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, that'll be something England will I'm saying that, look to avoid. They can't really do much about it, I suppose, at the end of the day, because your objective in the minute is just to qualify. England playing Bridgetown again against the USA, which will obviously be, I think a lot of lads have played there numerous times, which will be a big benefit to England. And then so one semi-final's in Guyana, did you say? Where's the other semi-final? The other one's in Trinidad. In Trinidad, and then the finals in Bridgetown as well. Bridgetown, yeah. Well, but I found it interesting as well, because these Super 8 matches, it's literally play, travel, play. So it's literally 5 days, 3 matches in 3 different countries. So it's literally, the guys will be probably on a plane now, very early in the morning, heading to Antigua. Yeah. After what would have been a late night finish in Barbados, and what would have been a late night finish in St. Lucia not too long before, and West Indies obviously played their final round match not too long before that as well. So I think it's something like 4 matches in the last 7 days for them. After Sunday, so they'll want to be putting in a big performance, but they'll also want to be resting up after this a little bit. And stuff, No, definitely. Well, I think that's what we spoke a little bit about, obviously the logistical aspects before as well, didn't we? And even from a regional perspective, we spoke about it quite a lot in terms of travelling and getting about and stuff. But I think it's all set nicely to finish, which will be a bit of a good tournament so far. There's been a bit of I don't know if you've seen the article, but I think there's been a bit of Josh Butler's come out with a statement about his opinion that there should never be any international cricket that clashes with the IPL, and it sort of stirred a little bit of a few responses and stuff. What I'm not sure if you've seen it and stuff, but I'm put you on the spot a little bit. But what do you make of that statement? Why did he say that? Like, what's his rationale because what is the priority? Well, that's it. I think from my opinion, that's it. I think when I read, it was only like a little short post that I seen, and it sort of got my attention, because I was thinking to myself, well, I'm not really sure what angle he's going with in terms of, like, is it more a case of that being the premium franchise T20 tournament, so it should be left alone, but then also, is it a slight dig at the volume of international cricket that's been, I don't know. I just wanted to sort of quickly, it literally popped up about 2 minutes before we started this, and I just wanted to sort of get your opinion, but I wasn't sure sort of the angle. But I also personally think it's quite ill-timed to come out with and say something like that, because as captain of England in the current situation, with a game to go in the semi-final and the final potentially down the line, I would like to see his focus solely being on international cricket rather than making comment about the crossovers between franchise cricket. But that's my gut take on that, without reading too much into it, to be honest. I think that it's a tricky situation because it's very few international players that get into the IPL. So, with so many leagues around the world, why should other leagues be impeded, but the IPL shouldn't be impeded? If you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So then it could be, what if it were a situation where, all right, there are only X amount of players that can go to any one league at any given time. What if the ICC says, all right, you don't want international cricket to impede the IPL? We're going to play every single league at the same time of the year. You pick which league you want to play in.
Yeah.
And so players lose the opportunity of playing in the IPL, the 100, the PSL, the BPL, the CPL, the MLC, the SA20, the ILT20, Sri Lanka Premier League, all these other leagues that I can rattle off.
No, you've done well to reel all them off.
Exactly. You literally just have your pick of one league.
Yeah.
And then once that time frame, that window of unimpediment, like you're not able to impeach on any of these franchise leagues, then it's just international cricket for the rest of the year. Yeah. How will players take that, So it's sort of a give and take sort of situation. I don't think that, obviously, because it's the highest paying league in the world, you'd like for it not to be impeded, but if it is what it is. You've got to go and serve your country, unfortunately, for those guys having to leave the IPL and that level of earning. But again, those guys are the ones that are the top ranking players in the world. So it's not as if missing out on 1 year is going to affect the overall scheme of things, because you're still on contracts with your countries and you're still on contracts with other franchises around the world.
Yeah. No, I appreciate, but I put you on the spot a little bit there with that sort of thing. But you make a good point. Why should the IPL get priority over the others and stuff? So, but I think that sort of wraps up today's episode. I think we've covered it nicely as we always do. So thank you very much.
Cheers, Jordan, and we look forward to seeing what's going to happen pretty soon with that Afghanistan and India game. Yeah,
definitely. I'll be tuning in. We can get that sorted. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate, like I mentioned at the very start of the podcast, I appreciate everybody for tuning in, watching and listening. So thank you very much, and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay Podcast, hosted by Kieran Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device. Or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay Podcast.